I went to the grassland to escape the summer and picked up a man who said a horse. The figure is mighty, somewhere, magnificent. I ran away at dawn. He chased him to City Inn and sold 2 cows to find you. Thinking of his endless bull energy, my heart softened. Wrapped him, until I found out that his family was a cow. By mountain. Hello, everyone, welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. Meet Chad on a prairie road that doesn't have a name on the map. The rented SUV, by a herd of cattle, was stopped. Yellow and white cows, like moving islands, converged into a torrent and flowed past the front of the car. I put out the fire. Anyway, I'm here to relax. Where is it not scattered? Roll down the window, pick up the SLR, and focus the camera on this mighty river of life. Click, the shiny lines of the cows back in the sun. Click, dust flying under the hooves of running cows. Looking for the next focus, a figure barged in. Click, instinctively press the shutter. The moment the photo freezes, the heartbeat misses a beat. A man on a horse is parked on the other side of the herd. Look at me condescendingly. The jujube red horse, oily and slippery, is a good breed at first glance. Person, it's even better variety. He looked like he was 27 or 18 years old. The complexion is not as dark as you might think, but a healthy wheat color with a radiant glow. Broad shoulders and narrow waist, simple black t-shirt, propped up by pectorals and arms. The legs are slender and wrapped in dark jeans, tight. People can't help but want to look at it twice. The man's eyebrows were slightly raised, as if he was thoughtful. The next second, a clip of the horse's belly came to my car. He leaned over and knocked down the window pane with his knuckles. Don't get out of the car. The voice is low, the Mandarin is standard, and the attitude is polite. He seemed to explain the risks that might be involved in getting out of the car, but I didn't hear it at all. The brain is down, and only a slow-motion close-up of the face in front of me remains. MD, that's handsome, heroic sword eyebrows, long, dense eyelashes, a ridge-like nose bridge, and thin lips that look a little unsentimental, and the vigorous wildness hidden in the eyes of those unruly eagles. There are only 3 words left in my mind: vitality. After Boris split the leg of the woman who had just turned 20, the word was used in the perfunctory breakup notice. Clara, you're good at everything, you're just too sensible. With her, it's noisy, naive, and silly, but there's a vitality. So, I'm sorry, a certain string in my heart was plucked unexpectedly. Put down the camera and raise a smile to the person in front of you. I'm sorry, I think I'm lost. Tilted his head, and his tone was soft and innocent. This little brother. Is there a place to stay nearby? Looking at those deep eyes, he deliberately paused for 2 seconds. Before he could speak, I added, for example, your family. The man in front of him was visibly stunned for a moment. He didn't answer my question directly, turning the horse's head and whistling at the back of the herd. A few responses were heard in the distance. Several figures on horseback appeared. They are all elderly uncles, wearing local robes. It's an imaginary herdsman. They skillfully gather and drive the herd. The torrent began to turn in an orderly manner, heading deeper into the grassy slope beside the road. Within minutes, the road was back open. Keep up. He threw 2 words at me. The maroon horse ran first. The car started again, and I looked at the figure in front of me. Broad shoulders, straight back, 2 long legs. On the majestic steed, it was not compared at all. I gestured silently, feeling that my small body might be like a pendant in front of him. After driving for a while, he reached for his headphones and seemed to be on the phone. The little abacus in my heart crackled. He couldn't be contacting his family to entertain me, a lost guest. Right, what do the people on the grassland call their wives? I sped up to keep up, parallel to him. He heard the sound and turned his head sideways. The wind blew the broken hair, revealing a smooth forehead. Good this little brother, Chad, he interrupted me, his voice being blown by the wind. Clear and powerful, Chad saw that I was stunned, stopped, and his eyes fell on my face. What's wrong? Well, my name is Clara. His eyes flickered. I fixed my mind. Chad, how old are you? 31. I chuckled in my heart. At this age, on the grassland, there should be a group of children. How old is your child? Chad listened to my question and was silent for a few seconds. Then, he smiled, revealing his neat, white teeth. I'm not married, he paused, as if he didn't think it was enough, and added, I'm single. The car drove for a while and finally stopped in front of a building. Chad rolled over and dismounted, walked to the landscape area by the gate, and wrapped the reins around the poplar trunk a few times. He patted the horse on the neck again. The horse snorted and nibbled at the turf. I looked at the familiar revolving door, a little dumbfounded. Isn't this the hotel I'm staying in? Chad walked to the window. Here we are. Look at the face that seems to be smiling but not smiling. I parked the car and pushed the door open. Chad, I'm hungry. Look up at him. Handsome guy. Would you like to dinner? Chad's gaze sank. Okay. He stretched out his hand and spread it out in front of me. I'll drive the car keys. I looked at the large, broad, well-defined hand. A bold idea came to me. Can you, riding a horse? Chad heard this, his gaze going from my face all the way down. I swirled around on the linen dress on my body and the flat sandals on my feet. Okay, he walked up to the horse, untied the reins, and looked back at me. I was figuring out how to climb high on horseback, foot on my hand, the next second. As soon as his arm was forced, my whole body was lifted up and landed firmly on the saddle. Chad rolled over and grabbed me in his arms. The chest is like a hot wall. Sit tight. The horse neighed, and its hooves flew over. The wind howled, blowing the skirt and long hair flying. The weightlessness of speed made me subconsciously lean back. The earth retreated rapidly, like the wind. We chased the sunset in the west. After running for an unknown amount of time, the horse gradually slowed down, finally. Stop on a gentle slope. I wondered if Chad had rolled over and dismounted, arms outstretched. Come down. I was picked up by him, and the moment I landed, my feet went limp. I looked at him for some reason. He raised his chin at the horse that was gnawing on the grass. Add some oil. It dawned on me. The setting sun hangs over the distant mountains. The grasslands are dyed with a gentle, orange-red glow. The wind stopped, and the only sound left was the sound of horses chewing, and each other's breath. I looked at the side of Chad's face. The high bridge of the nose and the well-defined jaw are outlined with a golden outline. He felt my gaze and turned his head. You work at City Inn. I mean, a big city like City Inn. I nodded, but my eyes didn't take my eyes off him. At the moment, I don't want to talk about work or city at all, or any topic related to reality. Chad, I interrupted what he might have been about to continue. Then I'll ask you a question. He looked at me. You're single, aren't you? Chad didn't answer. He bowed his head in silence and muffled my voice. Rough kisses. I even felt that his lips still smelled of wind and sand. Climb on his strong arms. Chad's hands grew irregular. One hand held me on the back and pressed me closer to his body. The other hand reached through the side hem of the dress. The rough touch goes all the way up. Kissing is transferred from the lip flap to the neck and collarbone. Every stroke is like a brand. The air is compressed to a thin surface. The raw sense of power makes me tremble and get excited. You can clearly feel the amazing changes in his body, like a stone. At this moment, he is a ferocious beast, and I am the prey under his claws. But I knew that as soon as I shouted to stop, he would stop. But I don't want to. I grabbed his hand. Chad paused, stared at me, and asked in a dumb voice, "What's wrong?" My gaze looked over his shoulder to the wide, flat rock. Chad glanced at me and lowered his head. The hot lips are about to be covered again. Boom dash. The loud and rapid neighing of horses pierced the ambiguous dusk. Chad stopped. The force that almost crushed me was also drained. He closed his eyes, and his Adam's apple rolled violently. It's like fighting against the newly awakened beast in your body. The residual warmth of the body has not yet dissipated, but the heart is at a loss. It took a full dozen seconds. Chad opened his eyes and looked at me calmly. If you met someone who wasn't me, but someone else, a good-looking herdsman, would you do the same? I opened my mouth, held it for a long time, and squeezed out a sentence. You're not just good-looking. Chad was silent for a moment, then turned his head to look at the sky. The last rays of afterglow are about to sink into the horizon. He helped me straighten the neckline of my dress. Let's go eat. I looked at his serious look and wanted to laugh. It was like eating me just now. but now it's like a junior high school student. Desire and restraint are so direct. With such a person, a little reassuring, Chad wandered around the night and eventually led me to a small and unassuming shop. The shop is not big, but it is well clean. The air is filled with the aroma of milk and meat. A chubby woman with a kind face walked out. When I saw Chad, I was stunned for a moment, and then my face showed the kind of loving look that is unique to the elders when they see the juniors. Chad, are you back? Yes, Emma. It seems that his popularity is good. Chad nodded, pulled out a chair, and sat me down. Emma, hand-handled meat, cold bracken, scrambled eggs with shallots, fresh milk soup. Well, your signature biscuits. He glanced at the menu again. Another yogurt. Then he looked at me. Order these first. Not enough. I'm not really happy. The intimacy that was forcibly suspended was like a meal that had just been served as an appetizer and was removed. Not up or down. I wanted to pick and choose what he ordered. But when that steaming plate of meat was brought up, all the belly slander vanished. The mutton is stewed so badly that the flesh and bones are separated with a light tear. The gravy is delicious and does not have a hint of smell. Dip in leek sauce and melt in your mouth. The unique spicy aroma of shallots also goes well with the smooth local eggs. If it weren't for body management, I would definitely be able to kill 3 bowls of rice. Halfway through the meal, Chad seemed to remember something. You sit down first. I'll make a call. As soon as he left, Emma came over with a small jug of wine. Girl, try our own sea buckthorn fruit wine. It's not intoxicating. I looked at the tall figure hidden in the darkness, and the unexplained melancholy in my heart came back to me. Okay, the wine was a beautiful amber color, fruity, much better than I expected. Soon, the cheeks burned. Everything in front of me is covered with a veil. When Chad returned, he saw a blurry me. He sat down across from me. Bring a nice smell of the night breeze. How many drinks? I didn't answer. Reach out and use the tip of your index finger to gently draw circles on his sturdy forearm. The lines of the muscles, through the fabric of the t-shirt, are still clear. Chad. I leaned into him. Hug me. Chad grabbed my messy hand. The eyes were dim in the light. I'm going to ride a horse. What do you want? He looked at me for a moment. It's too late. I'll have someone bring the car. After a few more moments, a black SUV stopped at the door. Chad settled the bill and put me in the passenger seat, half helped and half hugged. Before he turned to close the door, I hooked him around the neck. After looking at him for a moment, he let go again. Chad walked into the hotel lobby with me in his arms. Brother, you're back. The little girl at the front desk saw him and greeted him in surprise. I stayed here for 2 days and had a good impression of her. It seems that Chad should be a good person. My little sister's gaze immediately fell on my face. Brother, Miss Clara is you, friend. Chad nodded and helped me to the elevator. For 24, I shook my room card and handed it to him. The elevator door opened, and he carried me into the room. He put me on the bed, took off my sandals for me, and pulled the quilt over me. A bedside lamp was left. Chad turned up the air conditioner, walked to the minibar. Unscrew a bottle of water and place it on the bedside table. I grabbed his wrist before he turned to leave. Chad, my voice was a little muffled because of drunkenness. Can't you? Chad seems to have been pressed the pause button. What did you say? I struggled to prop up my upper body and looked directly at him. I said, yes, no, okay. His jawline instantly tightened. It's just a dewy love affair on one side. Don't tell me you are sincere. Because you respect me and pity me. So you can't do it, I sneered, and went on to myself. Everyone is an adult. I am interesting to you, and you have feelings for me. On the grassland, it's all like that. You're not incapable. What's that? The dizziness caused by the strength of the alcohol seems to have eased a little. Instead, there was a heat and dryness. Clara, no, it won't. Chad was interrupted and looked at me. Chad, to answer your question, no, not to follow anybody, because, I don't know. Anyway, you're different. He didn't speak, as if he was thinking about something. Seeing that he didn't respond, I simply sat up and moved towards him. The hand begins to ignite. Chad, can you do it? Don't you count it yourself. Before the words fell, his wrist was clasped. Chad clamped me tightly. and the sound seemed to be squeezing out between my teeth. Clara, do you have to try, just try, a fierce kiss that gagged my lips, predatory encroachment. I was dizzy from being kissed and could only respond instinctively. It wasn't until the moment he was about to get his final answer that his brain regained a trace of clarity. I suddenly realized a very serious problem. The unclothed Chad is probably worth 2 mes. Chad, fingers tapped weakly at his chest. Trying to distance yourself too closely, he replied in a low voice. His breath sprang in his ears. I pushed him harder, a little weak. I'm not going to be crushed to death. Chad's offensive moves stopped. Those burning eyes looked at me with interest. He stood up, his arms at his sides. He looked down at me and then at himself. The next second, he smiled, got up and scooped me up. Then I'll hold you. Do it, I exclaimed. I've never had an experience like this. It's too much of a test of skill and strength. I was a little nervous for a moment, and my body stiffened, subconsciously hugged his neck, afraid that he would fall. Chad saw my concern and held me up with one hand, allowing me to rest more firmly on him. Don't worry, you're a little one, I'm not small. Chad's gaze moved down an inch, and he laughed happily. Well, it's not small, I've confirmed it. He ran his other hand over my bare back. The calloused fingertips lit a string of tiny electric currents. I was so embarrassed that my face was flushed before I could refute it. He had already begun to punish me for my wandering mind with his actions. Slowly but forcefully, I followed his rhythm until I could no longer stand the wave that swept in. Bite him on the shoulder. Chad's movements only paused. Clara, you really. Sharp teeth and sharp mouth. Don't call me by my full name. He stopped and looked at me with those red eyes. What's that called? I subconsciously nodded, but the words came to my lips and stopped. Boris used to call me that affectionately. Chad sensed my hesitation. Eyebrows were slightly raised. With a hint of scrutiny, I don't call anyone else's name. He leaned sideways towards the head of the bed and took me into his arms. Fingers lightly scraped the tip of my nose and said softly, baby. Is that okay? A slightly raised childish sound drilled into the ears. I recall the feeling of almost knocking my soul out of my body. Of course, yes. Before he could finish speaking, he withdrew, and then turned over. Chad looked down at me again, a smile curling into his lips. Well, I guess, is it okay? It wasn't until his chest began to shake in front of my eyes that I realized I hadn't answered him yet. But he had apparently gotten the answer he wanted. Nails dug deep into his back. Chad was just in my ear as if he was unconscious. Can I do it? Now I know what I know. January. The moonlight crept in at some point, cast a silver glow on the messy sheets. The whole body is screaming and sour. I lay in Chad's arms, his hand caressing my back. The tranquility that is completely filled is more relaxing than ever. Chad, well, I'm here. The voice came from the chest, low and magnetic. I thought about the itinerary. I'm going to stay here. Can you accompany me for 3 days? Wander around? Actually, it's 2 days, but I'm not going to tell him. Chad's hand paused. Not tomorrow. I was about to say, forget it. He seemed to notice my stiffness. The arms tightened, holding me more firmly in their arms, gently pinched my face with his other hand. I'm not done yet. I have to go herd the cattle tomorrow. Poof. I couldn't hold back and laughed. This reason is too down-to-earth and unexpected. The little loss in my heart was instantly diluted. Chad saw my shoulders shake with laughter and pinched my nose. It's not because of you today. I asked Uncle Batu and them to drive the cattle back in advance, but as a result, a few calves didn't keep up, and they were scolded by Grandpa at night. I want to laugh a little when I think of a man as tall as Chad, and when he is so trained by his elders that he can't speak. Laughing, an even bolder idea came to me. I stopped laughing and lay on top of him. Then I'll go with you to herd the cattle. This time it was Chad's turn to froze. Clara, herding cattle is boring. You have to be outside in the wind and sun, and your phone may not have a signal. Are you sure? It doesn't matter if you have a cell phone signal or not. I pecked him on the lips. As long as you have a signal, that's it. The change in Chad's heartbeat can be clearly felt. After a while, he pressed over. Okay. I woke up in the overly bright sun. The side is empty. Subconsciously pick up your phone. I'll go change my clothes. I'll wait for you in the restaurant downstairs. Looking at the word Chad on the dialogue box, my face was a little hot when I thought of last night's madness. I got up and took a shower, and changed into the most down-to-earth equipment in my suitcase dash, white tee, denim, sneakers. Chad sat by the window waiting for me, with a hearty breakfast in front of him. He also changed his clothes and was refreshed. The locals who work at the hotel seemed to know him. After eating, he walked all the way, but anyone who was a little younger than him would show a gossip smile. "Hello, sister-in-law." I subconsciously wanted to explain. Chad was unmoved. "Okay, out of the hotel." The red horse was already waiting. I was about to run over in a frenzy when Chad held me down. He leaned down. "No, yesterday it was all red. I'll give you. I saw it when I cleaned it up. The face burns instantly enough to fry an egg." "What do you call it when I clean up?" "I'm not impressed at all." Raised his hand and smacked him. "Chad, you rascal." He chuckled and launched an electric sightseeing car, the kind in the scenic area. "Well, you open this." A spectacle appeared on the step. Tall men rode horses and followed the herd. The petite woman drove the battery car to escort him. Cattle herding is indeed bored. Wherever the herd goes, we follow. Most of the time, Chad just sat on his horse and occasionally whistled to warn the outliers. It was also because of boredom that we talked a lot. Most of the topics revolve around me. Chad asked me about my life at City Inn, asked me why I did the job, and even asked about the movies I liked and the vegetables I hated. His questions were very small, like trying to piece together a complete Clara. I don't know what to ask about his life. You can't ask him, "How many cows do you have?" or "How much grass does this horse eat in a month?" Our world is too far apart. I couldn't even find a decent question that cut into his life. This kind of cognition makes people inexplicably a little irritable. Perhaps sensing something strange about me, Chad pulled the reins and slowed down. He patted the horse on the neck gently. "His name is Buck Akeltakinma, and it was a gift from my grandfather on my 12th birthday, when I was still a little bit who would only follow my mother's ass. It's beautiful. I am truly amazed." He smiled, with boyish pride. "Of course, he's my best brother." Chad rolled over and dismounted, and handed me the reins. Don't be afraid. He's docile and doesn't move." Chad took the reins and let me close. I hesitated to reach out and touch Buck. He stood beside me and told me a lot of things. He's a picky eater, preferring alfalfa grass mixed with oats, and ignoring ordinary ryegrass. He is big, but he is timid, and he hates it when people touch his ears. And he trembles when he touches him. The wound in my stomach is from when I was a child. At that time, he had just learned to lass his horse, and before he could get it right, the rope got tangled around his hind legs and tripped him up. In those years, my grandfather wouldn't let me touch the horse, so I could only lie to him and tell him that it was more efficient to study next to Buck. So I read the text to the horse every day and brushed the horse's bristles at the same time. I don't know if he understands it, but my grades are okay anyway. I could hear it. The sun gradually rose. From a cloth bag next to the saddle, he took out 2 oil paper bags and a military kettle. The cake that was baked by the hotel in the morning was sandwiched with beef. We sat down on a grassy slope full of wildflowers. The herd grazes quietly not far away. Blue sky, white clouds, green grass. Time seems to stand still. I leaned on Chad and shared a loaf of bread and a pot of water with him. The picture is dirty. It's incredibly romantic. I even had the illusion that we weren't passers-by. Just when I was blushing a little from this unrealistic thought, a newborn calf with fluff on its head somehow broke away from the herd and came close. It walked up to me and blinked and looked at it for a moment. A wet touch hits. I was so excited that I exclaimed. Chad grabbed me, looked at the calf that I had scared back, and laughed. The sun was shining just right, and I squinted at that pure, unguarded smile on his face. Reach out and trace gently. Even if it's a dream, I want to indulge in it a little longer. The two of them wandered around for a day, until the sun waned, and then they returned to the Chad's ranch. He led me into a small building. An old man was sitting by the fireplace, drinking tea. The old man was as tall as Chad, just a little thinner, spirited. When he saw me, he was visibly stunned, and his gaze stayed for a moment. Friend of the city. Grandpa Chad's Mandarin is also good. Chad nodded, as if he didn't want to say more. His grandfather didn't say anything more, just looked at me again. The expression on his face is not pretty, but he did his best. I brought me steaming salted milk tea, crispy roasted milk skins, and chewy air-dried beef jerky. He also asked some questions such as what is it called, where do you live, what to do and so on. I'll answer them one by one. Chad on the side was nervous more than I was. One moment he stood up, the other rubbed his hands. When I got up again to get my grandfather tea, he finally couldn't help it. Grandpa, he stammered. Clara Clara has to go back to the hotel. I have to send her. Grandpa glanced at him faintly. I read that look, interest. I guess Chad is going to get scolded again tonight. On the way back, neither of them spoke much. Or did he speak first? Are you tired? A little. After a day of wind, the bones are almost scattered. It's that I didn't take your physical strength into account. He paused, with obvious apologies in his tone. I'm used to it. We are here. The kindergarten June 1st activity is a mini marathon. 3-year-olds, 3 kilometers. Seeing that I was looking at him, he continued. The high school coming-of-age ceremony is a 60-kilometer hike, and the university military training is an 80-kilometer hike. Chad is serious about the hardcore daily life here. The laughter fell, and the car was quiet again. Subtle emotions ferment in the air. After a while, he broke the silence again. Actually, my grandfather is okay. Chad, I interrupted him. Your grandfather is very nice, but I don't care what the old people think of me. I looked out the window at the rapidly receding night. After all, we're just right. Chad's voice sounded a little cold. He stared at the road ahead, his jaw taut in the line. Clara, are you really on the plane the night after tomorrow? I didn't expect him to be so direct. Chad, I was happy last night and I'm happy today. I'm also very happy to meet your grandfather. I looked at him and said in a sincere tone, but we'll stop there. The air in the car seemed to freeze instantly. Chad still stares ahead. You don't think we're one world, do you? Although you are not the same as the herdsmen you remember. But it's still not as good as those in suits and ties, right? He snatched the conversation, his tone marked with obvious sarcasm. I didn't mean that. And what do you mean? He continued to stab me with words. So, you like that kind of person? The kind of person who hurts you so badly that you need to run to the prairie to have fun with a strange man, don't you? I was dumbfounded. I don't want to talk about that right now. Chad jerked the steering wheel. The car turned into the side road. Get out of the car. I clenched my bag tightly. He's not going to leave me alone in the middle of nowhere, is he? Chad seemed to read my defensiveness and fear. He extinguished the fire, turned his head to look at me, and his voice softened. Get out of the car. Then, back to that knife-like tone. Don't you remember here, in the darkness, I saw the corners of his lips curled, yesterday, with yours the first kiss is here. I was a little confused by the first kiss in his mouth. Chad didn't think the water in my head was muddy enough. He leaned down and added slowly, you may have forgotten how we kissed, but I think, as you must remember, there is a big, flat slab here. The grassland at night is filled with the smell of grass and earth in the wind. Chad gently placed me on the slate. Chad, you. The protest was swallowed up. He traced my lips, moaning overflowing. He seemed to be pleased, and let out a low chuckle, increasing the force on his hand. Everything is slipping to the brink of spiraling out of control. Suddenly, Chad paused. I opened my eyes and looked at him in bewilderment, his brows furrowed, his eyes struggling. No, that. I was stunned for a moment before I realized what he was talking about. If you want, I can give it to you in another way, he said in a hoarse, more deadly tone in my ear. As for me, forget it. No, I don't. I looked him in the eye. I've been taking long acting. I forgot to stop this month. Chad froze. His body propped up above me didn't move, but his eyes looked like he was looking at a stranger. The fiery ambiguity instantly dropped to freezing. Don't understand, think I'm messed up, or are you jealous? Just as I was about to explain something, he suddenly asked a question I hadn't expected at all. And why last night? Why, I was stunned. I see, he sneered. You're worried I'm not clean. Chad jerked away, silent for a moment, squatted down, picked up the clothes that had been thrown aside, and began to put them on me. Chad, what are you doing? I struggled to push him away. He ignored me and focused on dressing me. The fingertips are still hot, but the person is as cold as ice. After helping me get dressed, he coldly spat out 2 words, "Get up." I sat on the stone and didn't move. Chad stared at me for a few seconds. Since you're worried about not being clean, what kind of stimulation are you still looking for? His voice was filled with disdain. Is this how everyone in the city plays? While disgusted, and at the same time leaning up. I didn't. When did I dislike you? I was stabbed by his questioning, and I was also angry. I didn't think about it that much. Chad seemed to hear a big joke and took a step closer. You didn't think about it so much. You dared to do everything that should and shouldn't be done with me, right? The tall figure completely enveloped me. Clara, are you daring? Or are you not taking yourself seriously at all? Or do you think people like me can be thrown away after you vent? I was yelled at by him. Yes, that's right. I'm just here for thrills. That's what I came here to indulge. I stood up, tilted my head, and almost yelled at him. In an instant, the voice lowered again. But when I saw you, I didn't think about it that way. I'm sorry, Chad. I'm sorry. I'm just so sad. Tears fell uncontrollably. Chad froze. He looked at me, the anger in his eyes dying out, stretched out his hand. He froze in midair again. The only thing left in the air was my suppressed, staccato cry. After a while, I wiped my face haphazardly. Chad, you don't know me, and I don't know you at all. Take a deep breath and look directly at him. I lied to you. I'll leave tomorrow. So? Now all of this makes no sense. I thought the quarrel would end in the most embarrassing way possible. Chad would turn around and leave, and I would be left halfway through, but he asked an unexpected question. Can I go to you? I didn't react for a moment. Coming to City Inn, travel, Clara, can I go to you? He stubbornly asked again. The heartbeat is out of beat. An incredible answer squeezed out of his throat. Yes, that's okay. The moment the words fell, his whole body seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. Okay, it's true that you don't know me at all now, but you'll know later. Chad curled the corners of his lips. But you can get to know me a little bit more. Before I could react, he picked me up again, this time. He didn't give me any more chance to speak. The next day, Chad took me to the airport. He drove intently. The side faceline is still hard, but there seems to be a faint blue circle under the eyes. We each had our own thoughts. And we didn't say anything along the way. He accompanied me to the security checkpoint. Only then did I truly feel that this ridiculous journey was really coming to an end. Chad, like this grassland, will be left behind by me. The silence grew more and more suffocating in the ever-lengthening line. Chad, today, don't you have to herd the cows? My level of not having words to find words is really too bad. Chad turned to look at me, his eyes complicated. He seemed to want to laugh. But in the end he just sighed. Clara, I don't herd cattle every day. He paused, his voice a little muffled. Actually, I've got my own thing to do. Yes, I know, I replied absent-mindedly, my mind full of the coming distinctions. What he didn't elaborate on now seemed to me like a story from another world, distant and unreal. Clara, Chad called my name suddenly. I looked up. He reached out and flicked a strand of hair behind my ear, leaned over and imprinted a light kiss on my forehead. Baby. See you in City Inn. Sourness instantly wells up in the nasal passages. It dawned on me that perhaps the reason why I was so determined to leave was not because we were unsuitable, but because I was afraid. I'm afraid I'm going to really get into it. Suppress all emotions in your heart. Chad, goodbye. Back in City Inn, life switches back to work mode, endless meetings, piles of reports. Luckily, busyness is the cure for everything. That is, until Boris's call came after I hung up. I sent a few more sincere essays. There was only one central idea. He regretted it. He found that the so-called vitality was nothing more than a novelty, and he was most comfortable with me. I dragged him into the blacklist with a blank face and complained to my best friend Joanna on the other end of the phone. He doesn't think I'm too sane now. It's late. The old lady has already moved on. I'm going to look for it. My voice suddenly stopped. Chad was remembered. The man who set me on fire with his life force. Click on the dialogue box with him. The latest news is still the sentence waiting for you in the restaurant downstairs. It's good. When we meet, that's how it should be. The days went by like this, and a few weeks passed. On this day, I had just parked my car in the basement when a Maybach turned off in the parking space opposite. The door opened, and a tall man stepped down. Perhaps because of the superior height and tall figure, I took a second look. The gaze was fixed on the man's face, Chad. I sat in the car, my hand still on the steering wheel, and I just stared at him blankly. He saw me too, and stopped. 2 cars away, Clara looked at each other. The lights of the basement fell on him, making him look like a distorted sculpture. Is it really him? How could he? Countless question marks exploded in my head. The various pictures that I deliberately suppressed and forcibly forgot were like floods that opened the floodgates, drowning me in an instant. The wind of the prairie, the kiss of the setting sun, his hot chest, and the last sentence, see you in City N. It turned out that it was not a joke. He really came. I don't know where the courage came from. Maybe it's not thought through at all. I pushed the door open and almost staggered towards him, crashed headfirst into his arms, a familiar embrace, firm and warm. Chad, those 3 words had already rushed to my lips, and I swallowed them back again. What to say? What kind of relationship do we have? In the next second, reason returned. I withdrew from his arms, dragged him into the stairwell next to him. Chad looked at my panicked look and frowned. I'm not afraid that people will see you. I grabbed his hand and explained incoherently, this is where I work, so it feels unprofessional. Chad's brow furrowed. He stretched out his hand and, as in the prairie, rubbed my hair. Baby, see you again. Well, yes, what a coincidence. Subconsciously looking away. Attention fell on him. So, I cautiously probed, so, you're coming to City N, part-time job, looking him up and down. This suit, is it overalls? Are you a driver? There was another pause, or bodyguard? Chad seemed choked. He paused for a long time before squeezing out one word with difficulty. The face is not very good looking. I took one look at the Maybach, and then at his neat suit. Sure enough, it's good for people to be handsome, and I just came to City N. And I can be a driver for the big boss, which is good. Hearing my compliment, Chad softened a little. My brain was racing. My boss also drives a Maybach, his driver, and his net worth background is quite clean. Meeting Chad here was a bit too dramatic though, but he's not a bad guy, and there's no other way to locate me so precisely. Perhaps it was really just a coincidence. Thinking of this, the joy of reunion overcomes the struggle of reason. I pursed my lips, unsure of what to say next. Chad spoke first. Do you have time for noon? Not very good at noon. There's a meeting. And when do you get off work? I can't say. Maybe I'll work overtime. Around 9. I'll wait for you, he said earnestly. And then added, wait for me. After sending it to my boss, if you have time, I'll wait for you. Okay. I nodded. Then I'll treat you to supper. Supper. Laughed to death. What to eat for supper? After eating him, he was about the same. Take Chad home. And as soon as the door closes, his clothes are scattered. I was distracted when Chad showed his amazing life force once again. A bigger, sturdier bed will have to be replaced. I nestled in Chad's arms. The chest is wide and warm, and the heartbeat is steady and powerful. He stroked my hair with a gentle motion. This sense of security of being completely possessed and wrapped is really addictive. I broke free from his arms and pretended to be nothing. Chad, how long have you been in City N? More than a week. Got a job so soon, I said with just the right amount of concern. Seriously, is it reliable? What's wrong? Nothing. The job was introduced by a fellow countryman, and I contacted it before. Chad's answer sounded seamless. The people on our side are all helping each other in the field. He paused, adding, the owner's name is Jason, and he's coming to your building to find friends, so that's why I'm going to meet you again. Reasonably reasonable. But the string in my heart is not completely relaxed. Everything was too coincidental. Actually, this afternoon at the company, I took advantage of the coffee break to call the hotel where I was staying before. I found the enthusiastic front desk girl, side by side asked, about Chad, brother Chad, of course he's a good guy, we have 100 miles here, who doesn't know their home, they're all good people, her voice paused, and became a little cautious, sister-in-law. Are you making a fuss? Before I could answer, she began to come up with ideas. If you don't feel at ease, let him swear to Buck. Just say that I won't make you angry again. Thoughts turn, swearing to a horse. How old I am, I still believe in this. What can a vow, fluttering, represent? But, Chad, I sat up from his arms, you swear. He was a little baffled by my sudden request. Swear, to your little wind. I'll take it word by word. Say you're not a bad person. Chad looked at me for a few seconds, a flash of surprise in his eyes, then replaced by a helpless smile. He leaned over and put his forehead against mine. Okay, Chad, swear by my best brother, little wind. His eyes burned. I love Clara. The whole person was stunned. I should have responded, but his throat seemed to be blocked by something. Silence is infinitely magnified. Chad withdrew his gaze. Clara, he pinched my face and changed the subject. I think going to the police station to get a police certificate of no criminal record may be more useful than swearing. I couldn't stop my face for a moment. Who wants this? I just thought, I've only met a few times. Just, how? Chad interrupted me. His arms tightened, and he locked me in his arms. You've bullied me inside and out, and now we've only seen each other a few times. He pinched my chin and forced me to look at him. Clara, it's late, I'm on you. The position of the heart, like being hit hard by something. But I can't respond to his liking in words. I could only tilt my head and kiss him. It sank for a while. Baby, Chad suddenly dropped a kiss on top of my head. Today can you sleep here? My body stiffened almost imperceptibly. Letting him stay overnight means that our relationship is slipping in a more complicated direction. Well, I'll call you a ride. It was 1 o'clock in the morning. The next day, Chad left my house at 2 in the morning. On the third day, I looked out the window at the sky that was about to light up, and my mind was at war with heaven and man. Forget it. Scratched his hair irritably. You go, sleep on the couch, okay? Chad said yes quickly. When I woke up in the morning, I was not surprised to find that the person who should have slept on the couch was lying next to me. One arm was still lying around my waist. I woke Chad up. He rubbed his eyes and looked innocent. Your couch is so small, I fell it in the middle of the night. Seeing that you are sleeping deeply, didn't wake you up. Chad just stumbled down on my bed. In the next few days, even more so, he always had all sorts of reasons not to go. For a while, I'm really tired today, and I have to get up early tomorrow to pick up my boss. After a while, it's the water heater is broken. Borrow your bathroom to take a shower. For a while, it was I can't just go out like this because my clothes haven't dried yet. I knew Chad was making excuses, but my home, my life, because of his arrival, has indeed changed a lot. The entrance light, which is not lit when it is on, does not flicker. The kitchen, which I used as an ornament, has fireworks. Half of the drying rack was lost, and he repaired it. Are the men on the prairie so alive in their eyes? It's not the man on the prairie, it's me, Chad's boss. Life seems to be extremely regular. He, the driver, can even be 8 in the morning and 8 in the evening. So, I live the life of my dreams. Wake up in the morning to the aroma of breakfast and have a steaming meal waiting in the evening, and also, exercise that can be done anytime, anywhere. I'm working overtime, and I'm more motivated. Best of all, Chad never dictates my work. He would just bring me a glass of warm milk and sit next to me. Unlike Boris, who has always accused me of taking my work more seriously than him. In his free time, Chad spends his free time looking at his phone on the couch. I thought he was watching short videos. Once he accidentally glanced at it, only to realize that what he was looking at was actually book. Chad, you like to read. Clara, I went to school. I love to learn. Once, I was struggling with a plan. He leaned over and took a look. You want to focus on the concept of the source of innocence, right? But it's too empty. Chad pointed to the snow-capped mountains on the PPT and hit the nail on the head. You see, you only wrote about how much trace elements in the water are good for the body. But you didn't write about what the first sip of ice and snow melt water tastes like. You only emphasized how difficult it is to reach the water source. But you did not mention how the life that lives on that land depends on this water source for generations. In the simplest language, he made the most fatal conclusion: you're selling water, but you never really seem to have a good sip of water. I looked at him. At this man I thought was only about herding cattle and driving. For the first time in my heart, I felt something other than desire independence. The famous words of the Chinese talk show Queen Huang Ali popped up out of time. Do you know how successful I would be if I had a wife, if I could have a wife too? I hope he's Chad. Call Joanna. So, you said before that you would give that man 5,000 yuan a month. The other end of the phone was stunned for a moment. And then it became clear. Yes, 5,000, all-inclusive housework, on call, do everything, including love. Isn't it a bit materialization? There's nothing wrong with that. Joanna laughs widely. You and I will, and each according to what he needs. Why? You also want to use this model with the cowherd at home. She knew Chad existed. I hung up the phone and planted a seed in my heart. It was a rare weekend that I didn't work overtime. Chad made a table of dishes, after eating. He wiped his hands and came out of the kitchen. Nice weather, go for a walk. We wander around City N's busiest shopping street. Look at the glamorous urban men and women around you. And then look at the man next to you who is more handsome than anyone else in a white tee. The seed in my heart broke through the ground and sprouted. After sitting down in a cafe, I took a deep breath. Chad, let's talk. He looked up at me and motioned to continue. Look, you've just arrived at City N. And you're not familiar with place. I tried to make the tone sound like a bosom sister. Why don't you move in with me? Chad's eyes lit up. The food and lodging are mine, and I will give you another one every month. You are responsible for living expenses. I was stuck, and I didn't know how to describe his work. Chad put down his coffee cup and filled in the second half of the sentence for me. I'm responsible for providing you with service, right? His calm tone made me feel a little weak. I was bracing myself for the anger or taunt that might come. Is defined by a woman who uses money to define a relationship, and he will probably walk away. Chad just looked at me. Clara, how do you define different worlds? I was stunned. I didn't expect him to suddenly mention this. In the car that day, this sentence was the beginning of our quarrel. I would say that in the beginning, I did think that we belonged to different worlds, but these days of getting along, I wavered. Chad wasn't at all what I thought it would be. He's smart, logical, and a quick learner. He'll fix all the appliances I can't handle. He will cook meals that are 100 times better than takeout. He was also gentler and more considerate than any man I knew. He and I, no different, even, he's stronger than me. In time, he will be able to grow even better at City N, but he probably didn't feel like he belonged here. Looking into Chad's eyes, one can see the freedom of the wind and the vastness of the grassland, and all I have in my eyes is the work between the cubicles and the deadlines that can never be met. It was I who pulled him into this cramped and uninteresting world, in a ridiculous way. The wild wolf that should be running freely was in captive as my pet. I was ridiculously selfish and arrogant. Finally, I lowered my head, a little deflated. Chad, I don't know, I just think, you shouldn't just be a driver. After listening to my words, Chad was silent for a long time. I didn't dare look at his expression. It was a long time before I heard him chuckle lowly. Clara, I think you should go into human resources. Then, in a pampering and resigned tone, he agreed to my ridiculous offer. Okay, I'll move in. There was another pause. I sold 2 cows to find you, so why don't you have to? Let's get back to the book. This was identified after the contractual relationship. Chad didn't really change. He didn't even mention the living expenses once. It's as if he's already the head of my house. On the contrary, I always felt that something was wrong. That night, I came home to see Chad sitting on the couch with a laptop in his lap. On the screen is Excel, which looks like a budget. He taps on the keyboard, making a crisp sound. The focus and skill of the look surprised me a little. I leaned against the door and looked at him. Chad sensed my gaze, looked up, and smiled. Coming back, I walked over and pointed to the computer. You'll still use these? He shook his head with a smirk. Clara. Chad closed his computer and repeated what he had said. I went to school, so, in addition to working as a driver, you also work part-time as a secretary, or assistant. He laughed out loud at me, took me into his arms and scratched my nose. If you had asked me that in the basement that day, I might have told you the answer. Chad looked at me with a hint of cunning in his eyes. But now, I don't want to tell you so soon. And when do you want to tell me? When you really like me. I stopped talking. The next day, I was working overtime at the company. The entire floor was just me and my boss Chris. I vaguely heard him on the phone. Jason, what have you been up to lately? Looking for a time to get together and play a game together. Haven't been available lately. What kind of plane are you doing? Okay, then you get busy first, and make an appointment next time. Jason. I silently recited the name in my mind. Could it be Chad's mysterious boss and fellow? Chris hung up the phone and walked out of the office. Bianca, why don't you leave so late? There's still a little finishing touch. Just leave when you're done. Chris didn't mean to leave. He paused. Bianca, I have a good friend I want to introduce to you. On his face is the kind of look that is peculiar when he talks about good brothers. My best friend from school in Switzerland was Jason. That kid is tall, handsome, and still a rich second generation. Surely Chad is not handsome, I subconsciously retorted. But there is another key word on the lips. Switzerland, yes, we met in ETH, but Jason's hometown seems to be, well, Inner Mongolia. Inner Mongolia, Switzerland, ETH. Jason, stunned, Chris had picked up his phone. Actually, I told him about you. He smiled like a warm-hearted matchmaker. Jason said he'll invite you to dinner whenever you're free. Why is this kid free again? Well, thank you, Chris, but still not. I immediately refused. Why? Didn't you just break up? Well, I have someone I like, I blurted out, and even I was startled. Hurriedly said goodbye to Chris, grabbed his bag and headed home. Along the way, the phrase "I have someone I like" kept echoing in my head. Chad, opening the door. I shouted while changing my shoes, I miss you so much today. My voice, at the sight of the people in the living room, stopped abruptly. Chad sat on a single couch with a book in his hand. On the couch across from me, sat people I didn't want to see. Boris. The atmosphere in the living room was cold and tense. Your friend is here. Chad put down his book and walked over to me. Ex-boyfriend. Not friends. I had a cold face. Boris, we've broken up. You come to my house. It's harassment. I can call the police. Clara, listen to me. I'm confused. All right. I interrupted him. I don't want to hear it. It doesn't matter to me whether you regret it or not. I took a deep breath and didn't want to talk nonsense with him anymore. Turn around and look at Chad. And I already have someone I like. Boris departed. Chad's expression didn't change. He walked into the kitchen and brought the food to the table one by one. Garlic pork ribs, shrimp tofu, plum pickled tomato. It's all my favorite food. He put the loofah soup in front of me. I don't want him to see the food I cook, and handed me a bowl of rice. My ex-boyfriend is gone, so I don't have to act. I didn't speak. The orange cat downstairs seems to have gained weight again, and I have to struggle to turn over in the morning. The water pressure in the bathroom shower is a little unstable, so I'll get a new one. I saw an air fryer roasting milk yesterday and it felt delicious, so I'll make it tomorrow. Chad babbled on and on about these ordinary things about life. I looked at him and listened to his gentle voice. The heart, which was disturbed by the appearance of Boris, gradually calmed down. Chad, he swallowed a mouthful of food, looked up when he heard the words, and put the bowl down. What's wrong? I like you. I lowered my head and played with the rice with my chopsticks. Chad, have you heard? People who are not of my race must have different hearts. I could feel that Chad was looking at me. I've seen a lot of stories. Those girls who marry in the mountains and grasslands for love think that they are married to love at first, but in the end, he was tormented by completely different living habits and values. A lot of people don't end well, to tell you the truth. I have this kind of stereotypes. Go to the step, then I turned and went upstairs. At the end of the day, I made a detour and left through the other exit of the building. But the shiny black Maybach appeared behind him in a blink of an eye. I don't get in the car, he He doesn't drive away, just follow along. Until I couldn't take it anymore and walked over and knocked on the car window. Mr. Chad, are you too idle to do? I crossed my arms and sneered. Oh, I forgot. You're the boss. You can go to the class if you want, and you can't go if you can't. I've been living in my little apartment all this time, and I've been wronged by you. I'm sorry. Chad looked at me, his voice hoarse. I can't stand your apology. I walked 2 streets, and he followed 2 streets, eventually. I pulled open the door and sat inside. Whatever you want to say it now. I looked out the window and refused to give him a little bit of a look. Big liar. Clara, can you sit at the front? I can't, I said coldly. Aren't you the driver? I don't know if the passenger should sit in the back seat. The air in the car seemed to freeze. It took a long time for Chad to speak again. Go to my house. Okay. I curled the corners of my lips. Just let me see what the parents of rich people are like. Chad's home, in the affluent area of City N, Hentang Hills. I looked at the slowly opening carved door and sneered. When the car stopped, he walked around and opened the door, but I didn't move. Actually, I live in a small building like this on the grassland, which is bigger than this, seeing that I still didn't react, because I'm tall, and I'm used to living in a single-family house, in the United States, America. I got out of the car and walked into the living room, which was so empty that I could hear an echo. He watched me sit down on the huge couch and pour a glass of water. Well, I was born in the United States, Chad. Do you know how outrageous you are? Yes, I know. Chad sat down across from me and began to tell his story. My dad was born on the grassland, and my mom is a Beijing girl, and they met in college, and after graduation, they went to the United States together to work and start a business. Just stay over there. I grew up in the U.S., but I always go back home during the holidays. Cattle herding was requested by Grandpa when I was in high school. I spent a year at an international school here, so I don't know where I'm from. My grandfather said my roots were in the grassland. My parents said I was Chinese, but my passport told me that I was an American. He looked at me with a real confusion in his eyes. As I listened, the monstrous anger in my heart dissipated unconsciously. Don't sell badly. That doesn't justify you from lying to me. Yes, that's right. He admits frankly, it's my own choice to lie to you. Chad rested his elbows on his knees and looked at me with a serious look in his eyes. I've seen you in a photo of Chris's office before. I was stunned. You're wearing a white dress and you're standing in the crowd, a small one, with an aura of 1.8 meters. I was very tempted. So I asked a few more questions, and I knew your name, and I also knew you have a boyfriend. The first time I saw you on the prairie, I recognized you. But before I could figure out how to talk to you, you started teasing you. Right. He showed a crying and laughing expression. I'm a little dumbfounded, but I want to see what tricks you're trying to play. So, I called Chris, and I found out that you just broke up and came here to relax, at that time. I thought that if I went up rashly and said, hello, I am a friend of your boss, and I have wanted to know you for a long time, you'll probably think I'm sick. Plus, when you leaned in, I couldn't refuse. So, hearing this blunt sentence, my heart skipped a beat. So, I'll just count it. Chad spread his hands and smiled helplessly. That's a nice thing to say. I snorted. So, it's all my fault for being too proactive. Chad looked at me. He got up from the couch opposite and sat down next to me. I subconsciously wanted to move away, but he stretched out his long arm and took me into his arms. I struggled, but Chad hugged tighter. It's my fault. He rested his chin on top of my head, and his voice was a little muffled. I should have confessed sooner. But you keep saying that we are not in the same world, and I am a little entangled. I'm afraid that the huge contrast will make you feel pressured and push me away. So you're lying to me. Not, he sighed, on the prairie. Every quarrel always ends up. That's the end of it. I can't think rationally at all. I just want to tie you to my side first, then, back to City N. I was driving a Maybach and wearing a Tom Ford, and you opened your mouth and asked me if I was a driver. At this point, Chad pursed his lips. You really, it's so much fun. I just want to see when your eyes can get a little better. His voice grew softer, but during this time, I found that you are the purest to me. A woman's appreciation and desire for a man, it's really precious to me. Isn't this the kind of drama where the boss pretends to be poor? I don't think so. Chad's voice rang above me. I'm always wondering what kind of world I'm in. I don't like the Wall Street set. But it's not possible to stay on the prairie as Grandpa hopes. I went back to China to start my own business, but I can't tell when I'll go back. Originally, I thought what I needed was someone who could fit into any of my worlds.
A deep voice fell in his ears. But you made me realize that we can go and create a new world for the two of us. Chad cupped my face. Clara, I apologize to you for my deception. But if I hadn't started in the wrong way, I might never have seen the real you and the real me. So, I don't regret it. Even if what you say is true, you can't convince me. He looked at me with a wink. Look at you. I'm thinking about that again. I pushed him in annoyance. You thought about it too. I don't want to. I'm going home. Okay, I'll send you. I stood up and looked around the model room-like living room. Why is your house so empty? Chad paused. A hint of loneliness flashing in his eyes. Because I always feel I might leave at any time. He showed a look of nostalgia. Actually, I like your house very much. It's a bit messy, but it's very pyrotechnic, which makes me feel at ease. It's just the bed is too small. Knew that he was selling miserably, but the heart still beat irrepressibly. Where's the bedroom? Chad froze, looking at me for some reason. I'd like to see it. A big bed that can run horses. Go up now. You probably won't be able to get down. I haven't forgiven you yet. Yes, I know. He pulled me into his arms. I haven't convinced you yet. He deliberately added an unusual accent to that word. Chad. Chad smiled and grabbed my hand and picked me up. Chad is more difficult to deal with than Chad the driver. After that night, he left me at his house, and he called me a like. I need to be supervised and inspected 24/7. He did low for more than a month, every day with a variety of delicacies, and the service served me obediently. Eventually, I moved in, with large bags and small bags, unfinished mugs, a whole wall of figurines, a mess of miscellaneous books, with the traces of my life. He turned his big house into a real home. After 3 months of overtime, I finally won the annual order of that high-end mineral water brand. Taking advantage of the holiday, he and Chad went back to the prairie. When I saw Chad's grandfather again, the old man was still smiling. I just kept putting meat in my bowl with chopsticks. Eat more. I'm too thin. I'm full. I thought he was going to say, only then can we give birth to our old Lou family. It took a while to have the strength to ride with Auntie. I'm a little confused. I'm going to learn how to ride a horse. Facing Grandpa's sharp eyes, he immediately changed his words. Oh yes, it's to learn. I've got to herd the cattle with Chad. Chad laughed and his shoulders trembled. In the afternoon, he was caught on horseback. I was so nervous that I was about to break the reins. In the end, he was tired like a dead dog, carried off my horse by Chad. I fell on all fours, collapsed on the grass, unable to move. He lay down beside me and put me in the crook of his arm. I looked at the blue sky and asked the question that had been bothering me for a long time. You have two uncles, and Uncle Batu, and they help Grandpa. How many cows are there? I don't know the specifics, but the money that my parents and I gave to my grandfather should have been used for this. Probably tens of thousands. He pointed to a small hill not far away. Our house is counted as an ox, not according to the head, but according to the mountain, the brain boom. So, you said you sold 2 cows to find me in City N. That's the real 2, not the mountain. Chad began to settle accounts in a serious manner. Tickets, suits, Chris for dinner, almost. He looked at me dumbfounded and suddenly smiled. A velvet square box was pulled out of his pocket. However, this one really has to be counted according to the mountain. The heartbeat begins to accelerate uncontrollably. In the box, there is a brilliant diamond ring. In the sunlight of the grassland, it reflects a dazzling light. Before I could say the I do sentence, more terrible thoughts took over the brain. Chad, by the hill, will be scolded to death by Grandpa.